This story is generated and narrated by AI. So if the voice sounds a little off sometimes, thanks for bearing with us. Your feedback helps us make it better. What would you do if your own reflection stopped copying you? Stick around till the end. Because what you hear might start as fiction, but some truths grow quietly beneath your skin. I arrived in Prague at the end of October, not because of the season or the light, but because that was when my bank account dictated the final move. My name is Jonas Mercer. Once, people knew me as an artist. Now, they don't know me at all. And that's precisely what I needed. My last exhibition in London was a disaster. Not because of the critics, they loved it, but because I no longer understood what I had created. People spoke of the work as transcendental, primal, visionary, but I hadn't seen any of that in it. It was just canvas, paint, frantic strokes born out of insomnia and wine. That disconnect, that emptiness, it hollowed me out. Prague felt like the right place to disappear, a city with a long memory, full of faces that didn't look too long, cheap enough to survive in, old enough to feel haunted. It welcomed the broken. I rented a studio apartment in Žižkov, top floor of a decaying tenement. The hallway stank of cigarettes and wet laundry. Peeling wallpaper curled like skin around the light switches. The landlord, Lucas, said very little, just handed me the keys. Muttered something about a leaky pipe in the ceiling, and warned me not to move the old wardrobe nailed into the corner of the room. I nodded, not listening. The studio was tolerable. High ceilings, crooked beams, and a large skylight patched with yellowing tape. One wall had been painted a sickly green. The others were just bare plaster, pocked and blistered with old nails. But there was space to work, space to begin again. I set up my easel near the window, hung my old drop cloth, unpacked what little I had, brushes, oils, notebooks, and one half-finished canvas I hadn't touched since London. And that night, I slept for 13 hours straight. No dreams, no visions, just silence. On the second day, I noticed a smell, faint at first, like wet wood, or a damp sponge left too long in the sink. It came from the wall near the wardrobe, the one I was told not to move. I pushed against it gently. It didn't budge. The wardrobe wasn't just heavy, it was part of the wall now, fused or nailed in, as if sealing something behind it. I told myself it didn't matter. It was an old building. They all smelled like this. It would fade, but it didn't. That evening, I tried to paint, but the brush felt foreign in my hand. Every line came out wrong, forced, disconnected from thought. The canvas stayed blank. So I paced, stared at the walls, listened to the creaks above and below. The plumbing rattled like someone whispering in a different room. I opened a bottle of cheap Moravian wine and drank until I stopped hearing the voices. On the fourth day, something changed. I woke up to find a smear of black paint on the canvas, a crude shadow, jagged, uneven, like a silhouette scribbled by a trembling hand. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't painted it. I was the only one here. I convinced myself I'd done it in a stupor, sleepwalking or dreaming. I laughed it off, the kind of laugh you use to hold something back. But that evening, I began painting again, and the strokes came easier. I told myself I was finding my rhythm, that the shadow had inspired something, but deep down, I knew I wasn't painting what I saw. I was painting what I felt behind me, always just out of view. That night, I saw Aliska for the first time. Across the narrow courtyard, in the opposite building, a woman in a white robe stood at her window, brushing her hair slowly. She didn't look at me, didn't react when I lit a cigarette and leaned out the window, but she hummed a strange, off-key tune, almost tuneless, like a lullaby remembered badly. Then the lights in her room went out. I dreamed that night. I was standing in front of the canvas, but when I touched it, it was warm, damp. I pulled back and found my fingerprints sinking into the paint, like flesh pressing into flesh. The shadow in the canvas blinked. When I woke up, my shoulder itched, just beneath the left blade. An ache, dull and constant. I reached back, tried to feel it, but couldn't quite get the angle. There was no mirror in the flat, only the tiny bathroom one, too warped to be useful. Later, while digging through the hallway closet for old rags, I found something strange, an antique mirror. Tall, cracked diagonally, covered in a dusty sheet. I dragged it into the studio, propped it near the wardrobe, and that's when I saw it. A bulge under my skin, just below my shoulder blade, about the size of a golf ball, discolored, a faint gray-green hue, like something bruised and rotting. It pulsed when I touched it. I stared into the mirror for a long time. It didn't feel real, didn't look right. Like the image was showing someone else, someone beginning to change. Over the next few days, the bulge spread. Not quickly, not in some grotesque, cinematic burst, but slowly, like mold crawling across bread, subtle, persistent. It stayed just under the surface, soft at first, almost spongy, then firmer, more defined, like cartilage forming in places it didn't belong. The itch turned to pressure, and with it came something else, a sound. It began as a faint scratching, like a rat behind the plaster, but rhythmic, patient. But when I pressed my ear to the wall, there was nothing. It wasn't coming from the studio, it was coming from inside me. I began wearing thick sweaters, even when I slept, hiding my back from the cold air, and from myself. But the mirror, the one I'd propped near the wardrobe, it always caught me at the wrong angle, always showed just enough. I tried turning it, covering it, but somehow it would always shift, face me again, like it wanted to be seen. The paintings, they changed too. They no longer resembled anything I recognized, just dark swirls, layered forms, almost fungal in nature, organic shapes that twisted and sprawled across the canvas like they were growing, not painted. Each morning, new lines would appear, new details, added in a hand that was not my own. At night, I started locking the door from the inside. I didn't trust myself anymore. One evening, I looked out across the courtyard again, and Eliska was there, same white robe, same soft humming. But this time, she was staring directly at me. Her face was expressionless, eyes sunken, as though sleep hadn't touched her in years. She didn't blink, not once. I stepped back from the window, and she mimicked me exactly, like a reflection. The next morning, I saw something in the bathroom mirror, not in my eyes, not in my mouth, but behind my ear, a second bulge, smaller than the one on my back. And this time, the skin wasn't just discolored, it had texture, like a thin film of gray fuzz, soft, velvety. Spores was the word that came to mind, though I didn't say it out loud, not even to myself. I began scratching at it with a towel, then with my fingernails, but it only made it worse. A thin thread of black fluid oozed out, thick and metallic smelling. Not blood, something older. I wrapped a scarf around my neck, didn't leave the flat. Food became optional. Sleep came in broken pieces. The studio stank of mildew and turpentine. The walls wept moisture in the mornings. Then, one night, I heard a knock, not at the door, from inside the wardrobe, 3 soft knocks. I froze. It didn't come again, but something in the mirror had changed. There was a handprint on the inside of the glass, faint, fogged, but unmistakably there. It wasn't mine. It was too small, too thin, and it was on the inside. I threw a sheet over the mirror again, but the bulges didn't stop. They began appearing along my ribs, my neck, the back of my thigh, all in the places I couldn't easily see, as if it knew where my blind spots were. One morning, I tried to sketch what I felt beneath the skin. It came out wrong. What I drew looked like roots, intertwining, wrapping around bone, connecting nerve endings like a network, but there was something else, a face forming in the middle, featureless, but familiar. That night, I woke to find Aliska in the room, standing in front of the mirror. The sheet had been pulled down. She was staring into the glass, not at herself, but at something behind her, and I realized I couldn't move. My limbs were heavy, skin buzzing like static, breathing felt thick, like I was inhaling fog. Aliska turned her head slowly, her gaze locking onto mine, and then she smiled, a thin, brittle smile. "I see it in you," she whispered. "It's almost finished." I blacked out. I stopped going outside altogether. Time folded in on itself. The days bled together like ink on damp paper. I ate only when the dizziness made me crawl. I slept when I couldn't keep my eyes open. But even then, I could feel it. Moving, beneath the skin, like something winding around my spine. Gently at first, almost lovingly. It wasn't just growth anymore. It was integration. The thing on my back had hardened, not like a scab, not like bone, more like bark, dry, knotted, flaking at the edges. When I pressed against it, it cracked like deadwood. The skin around it no longer hurt. It was numb. I tried painting again, something I hadn't done in weeks, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My hands moved on their own, brush strokes that felt rehearsed, ritualistic. By the time I came to, the canvas showed a face, not mine, not quite. It was rounded, smooth, eyes blank and empty. Its mouth was slightly open, but instead of teeth, there were small spores inside, clustered like pearls. The scratching inside me became wet, a slow squirming, like something shifting through mud. Then came the whisper, not from Aliska, from the mirror. Not words exactly, just the idea of them, like meaning being pushed into my head without language. "You were becoming, you were chosen. You see now, don't you?" I laughed. I think. Or maybe I cried. It's hard to tell when your throat no longer obeys you completely. I smashed the mirror that night, or tried to, but when I swung the stool into it, it didn't break. The glass bent, like water. It shimmered, rippled, and for a moment, I didn't see my reflection. I saw another version of the studio. Same room, same walls, but everything was wet. The paintings were alive, squirming on the canvas. There were roots in the ceiling, fungal blooms pulsing on the floorboards, and in the center was Aliska, but she was no longer human. Her face was smooth, covered in fine gray fuzz. Her mouth opened in segments, like the petals of a carnivorous flower. Inside, more spores. She tilted her head at me, and behind her, I saw myself, not the real me, the version that had finished changing. I woke on the floor, naked, cold, covered in dirt. I don't know where it came from, but it smelled fresh, like it had just been dug from the earth. And when I looked at my fingers, there was something under the nails, black, fibrous, like the underside of a mushroom. I couldn't speak properly anymore. My tongue felt thick, dry. There were textures in my mouth that didn't belong, and my back had opened. Not a wound, not a gash, more like a blooming flower. The bark-like skin had split at the center, revealing a soft, pulsing interior, gray, pink, slick with a clear film. I could feel the air on it. It wasn't just part of me, it was exposed. I started whispering to myself, nonsense phrases, repeating them over and over. Everything grows if it waits, eyes where there are none, soft roots find the hollow spaces. Then the mirror came back. I don't mean I bought another, it just reappeared. Same frame, same smudged edges, only this time, my reflection wasn't delayed, it was ahead of me. It moved first and smiled. The reflection smiled, then it stepped back, and I stayed still. There's a moment when you realize you're no longer watching a mirror, you're watching a window, and on the other side is you, the version that waited patiently, the one that belonged. I didn't scream. Screaming is for people who still believe in escape. I just reached out, touched the surface, and this time, it gave way like skin. The glass rippled, warm, wet, breathing, and I stepped through. I don't know how long I was gone, but when I opened my eyes, I was still in the studio, sort of. Everything had softened. The walls pulsed faintly, as though they inhaled and exhaled in rhythm with my own chest. The light was no longer coming from the window, it came from the fungus. The paintings on the wall had changed. Each canvas was covered in layers, like overlapping growths. You could still see hints of color beneath them, the outlines of old works, but they were being consumed, digested. And Aliska was there, or rather, what she had become. She moved differently now, not with grace, but with purpose. Her limbs elongated and smooth, joints slightly too fluid, as though lubricated by some inner membrane. She didn't speak, not with her mouth. Instead, I felt her voice inside, a wet voice, soft and rhythmic, like something dripping in the dark. She told me it had always been this way, that the world I had lived in, the Prague above ground, the noise and the breath and the rot, it was just bark, a surface. And below it, like the root system of an ancient forest, there was this, the studio, the growth, the transformation, the truth. She didn't ask if I wanted it. She didn't need to. It had already begun. My skin had flaked away in patches. Beneath it was something softer. Not muscle, not fat. It was spore flesh, pale, textured like gills. It flexed when I moved, adjusted to the room. I wasn't just becoming something else. I was becoming part of the space. The ceiling wept, clear liquid dripping onto the canvases. Each drop bloomed with color, fungal pigments that crawled across the surface, and my hand, without being told, picked up the brush. I painted, not with oil, not with acrylic, but with something secret, something from within. And when I was done, there was no painting, only a mirror. And inside it, a room just like mine, and someone else standing there, watching, waiting. Maybe you've seen it. If you've ever passed an abandoned gallery window or a locked studio on a rainy street, that moment where your reflection doesn't feel quite right, where the light doesn't fall the way it should. That's me, still here, still painting, still blooming. This studio never needed an address. It was always wherever someone looked too deeply, where obsession grew too fast, where the skin itched without cause. Aliska showed me the truth. Now I show it to others. We don't speak your language anymore. We speak in texture, in growth, in the hollow spaces behind your ribs. And if you've heard this story, then it's already begun. You'll scratch soon, in that one spot you can't quite see. You'll dream of dirt, of pulsing wood, of rooms with no exit. You'll look in the mirror, and something will look back. Not you, not quite, but almost. Have you ever felt like something was changing in a part of your body you couldn't see? Let us know in the comments if this story made your skin itch. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the dark side of obsession.